Okay, so let's four limitless contemplations. May all beings have happiness and create the causes of happiness. May they all be free from suffering and from creating the causes of suffering. May they find that noble happiness which can never be tainted by suffering. May they attain universal impartial compassion, free of worldly bias towards friends and enemies. Sem jendangji dewatang dewe jutang dumpa jutik, dungal tang dungal chichutang trawa jutik, dungal mepe dewa tampatang mindrawa jutik, nearing chatang nitang trawe tang nom chempola nepa jutik. So good morning, everybody. It's lovely to see you on our very, very bright and lovely morning. It's very hot, which shouldn't be, which worries me a lot because it's climate warming and we shouldn't be having such hot weather. But today, I chose the topic when the chips are down. And the reason why I chose that topic is because last week, I got so many WhatsApps from people really saying that they had appreciated the session and that they really understood a lot of things. And I realized maybe at the moment, we are really trying to put together the spiritual, what we've learned spiritually and all our wisdom, and trying to directly apply it to our everyday lives. So I don't want to do complex things maybe for the rest of this year, although I definitely want to give you that way to the copper-colored mountain. I definitely want to do that. But I thought maybe one or two sessions on subjects like when the chips are down, and I'll tell you what I'm going to be doing with this, which is an interesting, very interesting subject, because all of us are talking about when things go badly and when we feel terrible and all of that. It's really important for us to understand that. And I think that how I got to this topic was I woke up the other morning when it was time to put a newsletter together, and there was this subject matter. I mean, I've got to say that I'm very, very blessed that I do get a lot of things that I need to teach at any particular time. And I didn't really know what I wanted to teach about it, but I wrote it and that here it is. But then it seemed to come to me because over the holidays, I was studying two texts simultaneously. I told you last time, and sorry, I'll tell you which the two are. The copper-colored mountain, which I told you I'm going to give you, but I'm going to try and simplify it a lot so that you can all understand it. And the other one is called Being Guru Rinpoche. And that text by James Lowe, I've mentioned it a few times. It looks like this, the book. It's a very, very beautiful book, but it's about a sadhana. The whole book is a sadhana, and you need empowerment to do this sadhana. However, what is really, really, and which I'm going to use mostly here, what is really fantastic about this is that James Lowe writes a lot of fantastic discussions about the verses in this prayer thing. And I think those are amazingly useful, especially for when the chips are down, okay? So he received this empowerment for this sadhana, or puja, whatever you want to call it. He received it from his guru, who is called C.R. Lama. And he's a psychologist. And he just has a way of taking things and putting them into your everyday life that is really useful and really helpful, amazingly, I feel. And I really felt that there's a lot from him that we can use for this topic when the chips are down. And I want to, without actually, might do one or two of the prayers from that, but we can't practice that unless we get the empowerment. So it doesn't really matter. But to set the stage, I want to start with an Olive Schreiner story. You know, Olive Schreiner was born in South Africa, and she had a most incredible way of looking at things and seeing them for what they really are. And I love this story, but it's a very long story. So what I've done is I've just underlined some of it to tell you. You'll have to fill in the rest with your heads. But I want you to really feel this. It's called the lost joy. And the lost joy is so important because, you know, that's what, when the chips are down, we've lost the joy that Lama Yeshe says we have to be. So here goes the story, and try and put yourself in it so you really understand. All day, where the sunlight played on the seashore, life sat. I'm leaving things out. She was waiting. She was waiting, but she could not tell for what. And eventually she grew very weary and laid her head upon her knee and fell asleep, waiting still. Then suddenly there was a shudder. She heard it, and a hand was laid upon her as the shudder passed through her as she slept. She looked up and saw over her the strange wide eyes of love. And life now knew for whom she had been sitting there waiting. And love drew life up to him. And of that meeting was born a thing rare and beautiful, joy. First joy, it is called. It was so warm, so soft. It never spoke, but it laughed and played in the sunshine. And love and life rejoiced exceedingly. Neither whispered it to the other, but deep down in its own heart, each said, "This new joy shall be ours forever." Big mistake in human beings. Okay. Then there came a time. Was it after weeks or was it after months? Love and life do not measure time. When the thing was not as it had been. Still it played, still it laughed, still it stained its mouth with purple berries, but sometimes the little hands hung weary, and the little eyes looked out heavily across the water, and love and life dared not look into each other's eyes, dared not say, "What ails our darling?" Each heart whispered to itself, "It's nothing, it's nothing. Tomorrow it will laugh out clear." But tomorrow and tomorrow came. They journeyed on, and the child played beside them, but heavily, more heavily. One day, love and light lay down to sleep, and when they awoke, it was gone. Only near them on the grass sat a little stranger with wide open eyes, very soft and sad. Neither noticed it, but they walked apart, weeping bitterly. "Oh, our joy, our lost joy! Shall we see you no more forever?" The little soft and sad-eyed stranger slipped a hand into one hand of each and drew them closer, and love and life walked on with them between them. And when love, mad with pain, cried out, I'm weary, I could journey no further. The light is all behind, the dark is all ahead." A little rosy finger pointed where the sunlight lay upon the hillsides. When on the sharp stones life cut her feet, he wiped the blood upon his garments and kissed the wounded feet with his little lips. He was no burden. He never weighted them. He only helped them forward on their journey. And when they came, I'm leaving out lots of things, sorry. And when they came beyond into the land of sunshine and flowers, strangely the great eyes lit up and dimples broke about upon its face. And this little being touched them as their joy had touched them, but his fingers clung more tenderly. So they wandered on through the dark lands and the light, always with that little brave smiling one between them. Sometimes they remembered the first radiant joy and whispered to themselves, "Oh, but could we also find him as well?" They wanted both. At last they came to where reflection sits. Such an important thing, where reflection sits. That strange old woman who always has one elbow on her knee and her chin in her hand, and who steals light out of the past to shed it to the future. "Oh," they asked, love and life cried out, "Oh, wise one, tell us when we met, a lovely radiant thing belonged to us. Oh, how did we err that we lost it? Where shall we go that we may find it? And she, the wise old woman, reflection, answered, to have it back? Will you give up that which walks beside you now? And in agony, love and life cried, no, give this up, said life. When the thorns have pierced me, who will suck the poison out? When my head throbs, who will lay his tiny hands upon it and still the beating? In the cold and dark, who will warm my freezing heart? And love cried out, better let me die without this joy. Without joy I can live, without this I cannot. Let me rather die, not lose it. And the wise old woman, reflection, answered, oh, fools and blind, what you once had is that which you have now. When love and life first meet, a radiant thing is born without a shade. When the roads begin to roughen, when the shades begin to darken, when the days are hard and the nights cold and long, then it begins to change. And he says, and love and life will not see it, will not know it till one day they start up suddenly crying, oh God, we have lost it, where is it? They do not understand that they could not carry the laughing thing unchanged into the desert and the frost and the snow. They do not know that what walks beside them now still is the joy grown older, the grave, sweet, tender thing, warm in the coldest snows, brave in the dreariest deserts. Olive Schreiner says its name is sympathy. I'm going to change that in her story and say its name is compassion. It is the perfect love. A very deep story. All Olive Schreiner's stories are very, very, very deep and very pertinent for this subject, because when we're going through really a lot, we have to learn to look differently. We have to learn to perceive differently. Instead, we never heed the warning of impermanence. We talk about it. We say that Buddhism's about impermanence, but we forget. We forget. And when we've got something, youth, careers, relationships, situations, money, we do not look at impermanence. This is a temporary drama changing every moment. And yet, the attachment to the realms, which I'm going to talk about, causes us to want things to last. And this causes great pain. Such an important thing. We really do not accept that things are not easy, that we will have very difficult times, that we've got a lot of pressure on ourselves, a lot. And it's really important when we go through the down times of life to remember this story, a very beautiful story with a great moral and very important. And James Lowe says, when we do tantric practice, I've got to keep my hands tied because I've got this black woman that always comes to my groups, and her son, when he watches her watching my videos, he says, but why does Melanie use her hand? Why does she talk with her hands? I said, I can't help it. That's how I do. So I'm going to try and keep my hands done. Well, that's what he said. Okay. So James Lowe said, when you do Vajrayana tantric practice, there's a breaking of boundaries, a real breaking of boundaries. Even when the masters and the yogis did their tantric practice, they would actually do it in places like cemeteries, all those kind of dark, eerie places. Why? Because all the things that normally frighten, disgust, and dismay you are brought out. And then you have to engage with this anxiety, with this negativity. That's my subject matter today. And it's kind of an existential angst, says James Lowe, that stirs the bottom of your existence. And then it can be transformed into excitement. So the heart energy, the same energy, can be used for liberation, not for going down when the chips are down. Now, Padmasambhava, his power arises from his fearlessness, not his fearless nature, because a fearless nature means you've always got to be unafraid. His fearlessness means, the ness means full of possibility. So when you've got fearlessness, it means full of possibility, means it's okay to have a feeling of fear sometimes, but not to see it as solid, and not to see it as you, and not to engage in it, and not to attach to it. Fearlessness is like that. And his power arises from his fearlessness. He's not overcome by anxiety. He doesn't turn away from situations. He goes right into them, and he uses those situations for liberation. So important. And James Lowe says, Tantra or Vajrayana practice, like we just did with Chenrezi, its root is about ecstasy. Why ecstasy? Because ecstasy comes from the Latin word called ekstatus. Ekstatus. And what does that mean? It means a stepping out of yourself. A stepping out of yourself. This self, this Melanie, that Bernice, it's a stepping out of yourself. So vital. Then you recognize yourself, not the self, not the Melanie self, because this, not the self you think you are, because that is this being, this Melanie is created, constructed from assumptions, number one. A big thing, never mind, we're talking about karma and habitual tendencies. But this being, Melanie, Patricia, Evelyn, it's created from assumptions. Now I'm going to give you a chance to open up and see what you've all got to say. But assumptions mean you think things about something, but they don't happen to be true. And all the people around you are not assuming the same thing. So when I see you or you see me, we see each other with different assumptions, with what I want, with what you want, and all the rest of it. And it's a very, very important thing. He says, this Melanie is constructed from assumptions, from karma, and from habitual tendencies. That's why in the Vajrayana practice, we visualize ourselves as the deities, okay? And then we move out of ecstasis, out of our ordinary self, and we're free to act in a different way. Now think about that. When the chips are down, think about if you've been doing Tara practice, or white Tara, or green Tara, red Tara, whatever you've been doing, or you've been doing Guru Rinpoche practice, or you've been doing Chenrezi practice, whatever, or the Medicine Buddha, whatever practice you're doing, it's not a Tibetan ritual that we're trying to learn about. It's not like that. It's so that you take the quality of the deity, you put it inside you, and now you are acting from a different perspective. So when you're really going through a trauma or a devastating time or whatever, you now can see yourself in a different way, which means you can react to the trauma in a completely different way, which is what I really want to teach you today. I want to teach you how to react. And that Padmasambhava, Guru Rinpoche, actually gives us the chance to react like him. It's such an important thing that we can react like him is so important. And, you know, James Lowe says, and I've got so many interesting things that he says, when you meet someone you haven't met before, you ask things like, where are you from? What do you do with your life? Blah, 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 blah. All these assumptions I've been talking about, okay? And we get to know something about that person. And we may even be with that person for years, and we may not really know them. But a master, a guru, hardly asks you questions about your life. They may say to you, where are you now in your life? What are you doing? But they ask you weird questions. What is your practice? They don't ask you questions about the temporary drama of your life, unless you go to them and you really ask them about it. They don't ask you, they don't get to know you like that. They're looking inside you to your real self, and they are talking about a different level of experience, not constructed out of the stories, the assumptions we make. They are looking at you in a different way. This is just a temporary thing. It's a temporary thing. I mean, Lama Yeshe said to me, a little while ago, he said to me, when I said to him, I don't know what we're going to do. We've got to go on to the next phase of my life. He says, never mind. You're a Zoom girl. Okay, so he says, you're a Zoom girl. So wherever you go, you can just take everybody with you. Okay. So I thought, that's so funny. I mean, what would he do that? He's just saying that for now, but next week, it could be something different completely and totally. They don't construct an opinion of you out of historical events and feelings. And sometimes they can be, as James Lowe says, they can be quite rude to you because you're going through this, that, and the other, and then they give you a completely different thing. And you think, how could they answer like that? Don't they even understand me and the pain I'm going through? Of course they understand. But they do not want to reinforce the assumptions that you have of yourself. Because those assumptions, when the chips are down, are not who you are. They're not at all who you are. And so if we remain in our stories with all our assumptions and everything else, then the guru has to open us up to a new, different kind of experience. And that same guru figure, if you look at them, they'll behave totally different to different people. They don't have a set pattern. They'll look at you and they behave totally different to you. So it's really important that you all understand that. And sometimes you might think, oh, they're so unreliable. They don't understand me. I know I've been there, down there, got the T-shirt. Okay. But they're looking at something completely different. And today, I really, really, really want to take you through many of the things that James Lowe puts out, plus the things that I put out. And if we go back to the story, Av, you must go back and get the beginning of the talk, please. But when we go back to the story, Olive Schreiner's story, it's so important because sometimes when the chips are down, you are looking and suddenly you look in a different way. And suddenly you see, oh my goodness, this is the very thing I need. I'm in the right place. I'm in the right time. It feels so awful. I wish it wasn't happening to me, blah, 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 blah. But it's absolutely right for you. And there's that beautiful little story. It's a very short story. It goes like this. There was a man who died and found himself in a beautiful place, surrounded by every conceivable comfort. A white-jacketed man came to him and said, you can have anything you choose, any food, any pleasure, any kind of entertainment. The man was delighted, and for days he sampled all the delicacies and experiences of which he had dreamed on earth. But one day he thought, oh my goodness, I'm so bored with this. I'm tired of all this. I need something to do. What kind of work can you give me? The attendant sadly shook his head and replied, I'm sorry, sir. That's the one thing we can't do for you. There's no work here for you. To which the man answered, that's a fine thing. I might as well be in hell. And the attendant said softly, "And where do you think you are?" Okay. "And where do you think you are?" You all think hell is going to be this terrible, terrible place. Hell can be the torment that you torment yourselves with all those assumptions, with all those things that we're talking about. Hell can be really, really, really that terrible, terrible place. And we're going to look at what the meaning of all the realms really are. And Bern, if I can have that cartoon of the monks and the emails, just quickly, if you can, I'll be happy. So have a look at this. There's the monk, and he says, the beautiful, dedicated little monk says, "Oh, master, is it proper for a monk to use email in communicating?" And the monk says, "Sure, as long as there are no attachments." Okay. As long as there are no attachments, whatever you're going through, as long as there are no attachments. I just want you to remember one thing, and then I'll throw it out, and then we can go. And I've got lots of lovely teaching. But something I did say to some of the groups already, and I want to go back to it, that in the Vimalakirta Nirdesa Sutra, Shariputra asks Buddha Shakyamuni, "Why is this world so full of impurities?" The Buddha responds. He says like this, "The thus come one." I love that name for the Buddhas. You must write it down and contemplate it. "The thus come one." In other words, you've gone a far way and you've left it all behind. "The thus come one is not to blame, Shariputra. This land of mine, where I am, is pure, but you fail to see it." And that's a key thing. We have got to train to see the purity, because everything in this life is actually pure. But we do not experience it. We do not perceive it like that. And so we perceive the impurities and all the ugly way of it. And it is so important to change that. And the other thing, which I have told you about, but I'll say it again, there's certain advantages. If you can switch on your cameras, it would be lovely so that I can really see how you respond to everything. I know that there's a heavy load shedding in South Africa, so I do understand if you can't, but try if you can, because when I see all the people's faces, then I can really respond to you. Okay, but what was in this copper-colored mountain book was there's certain advantages of being born in our world. The Buddha called our world saha, which means that which must be endured. That which must be endured. Okay, saha. Patricia's going, "Oh my goodness." Okay. According to the Vimalakirti Sutra, our realm where we live our realm is a pure land of Buddha Shakyamuni, which has unique qualities missing from other Buddha fields. So interesting for us to know this. And what is that? Saha, the world of endurance where we live, is the 13th pure land, right in the middle, the 13th pure land in an assembly of 25 world systems known as Vairashana, the Buddha of action accomplishment. Vairashana is glacial ocean. So from Vairashana, all these different levels, what happens is that he has different levels, and our world of Saha is on the 13th level coming from Vairashana. That's his heart, which is his mind. So important, okay? And from the cosmic vision, from the cosmology, if you don't understand this, don't worry about it, but it's just a very interesting point. From Buddha Vairashana's begging bowl, 25 Buddha fields are stacked one upon another of lotus Buddha fields. And 5 of those Buddha fields correspond to the 5 enlightenment things: enlightened body, enlightened speech, enlightened mind, enlightened qualities, and enlightened activities. 5. Now, our saha corresponds to the mind activity, which means that in it, where the essence of the Buddhist teachings, the doctrines of Vajrayana can flourish. Emaho, you are in a land, you are in a place where these beautiful teachings are able to flourish. Therefore, if the chips are down and you are seeing very negative things in your life about all the things you are worried about and can't do and all the things, then it's you who's not seeing it. It's not the situation, it's you who can't perceive it. Therefore, you have to change your perception. You have to learn. And how do you do that? That's the topic of my talk for the next 2 weeks, okay? Because next Monday is after the Jewish holidays, so there shouldn't be a problem, but the one after is the heavy Jewish holidays, so we won't be able to have a group. So just the one after we'll miss, but we can carry on with this next week. And so what I'm saying to you is that it's really important to change everything. And in this book, Being Guru Rinpoche by James Lowe, he's giving a commentary on each of the prayers in this Vidyadhara Guru Sadhana that he received from his guru, C.R. Lama. And he really, really, really feels amazingly about each one. And what he does also, which is lovely, is he translates the prayers into everyday language. So I love it. I read those prayers and they're in your own language, not this thou should and may I that and all of that. It's like, oh, well, I'm telling Guru Rinpoche, this is what I need kind of thing, which is really, really lovely. But please note the title. The title is called Being Guru Rinpoche, not praying to Guru Rinpoche, devoted to Guru Rinpoche dissolving into us, just plain being Guru Rinpoche. And what does it mean? It means we already are Guru Rinpoche with the 3 kayas, Nirmanakaya, Sambhogakaya, Dharmakaya, which we'll talk about later. We just haven't realized it. We think we are Mary, Peter, Jane, Melanie, but that's not our identity in truth. And really, really, this is so important for you to understand. I had an experience on Friday night, actually on Saturday morning, where it was really a very, very strange experience, okay, which I really want to share because I think it's so relevant here. What happened to me was we were watching, I watch Netflix. My husband likes to relax for a few minutes with Netflix at night, so I watch very happily. But I also am clearing out my study at the same time. So I watch with one eye and I'm clearing out all my files and folders and all my stuff that I've got from the last 50 years and everything, because we really have to move into the next era of our lives, okay? So on Friday night, we're watching this movie, The Gift. And The Gift, have you seen it? It's a fascinating movie, okay? And it's about this girl who's an artist who draws this symbol. She paints this symbol from a very, very early age. And actually, the symbol and all its experiences come from an excavation that happened, that obviously for her, she's into this life and she's got to resolve the history of what happened then. And she clearly gets it when she's a little girl, but all the psychiatrists are just putting her onto medication and telling her she has schizophrenia and all these kind of things. And she sees it. She also at one time heard this girl scratching on a coffin. So clearly, because of her beliefs in that life, she was buried alive, you know. Anyway, so it hasn't come together yet. We haven't finished, but she and this archaeologist are putting the whole story together of what really happened. Something would have changed history that was not allowed to happen. But this movie had an effect on me. So when I went into my sleep state, I was going into my own karmic history and what had happened and what had happened to me and the whole mandala of what I belonged to. And I was shown all of this in such a strange way. And when I got into my shrine room on Saturday morning, I said to Guru Rinpoche, how come I went in mostly, I did some of the basics in the beginning, but how come I went in at the top of the mountain and now I have to look back at all the levels? That was my pattern. That was what I had to do. And I was very blessed to be able to do that because I could see what was on the top of the mountain. And it's very clear looking at the karmic tapestry that I had done all of that before and that I'd come back now and I have to put it all together. And I was very, very blessed that lots of the masters had shown me how to do it and put the karmic history together. Now you have to put your karmic tapestries together. What am I doing here? What am I doing in my practice? What makes me attracted to this deity or that deity? What makes me want to be that in my life? That's what happened to me. And all I can tell you is I did put a whole lot together, but I sat in the shrine room on Saturday morning, absolutely inspired. I don't know what happened, but I know that I came into life on Saturday morning in a different sphere, okay, because something had connected, something in the complex patterns of our own mandalas had connected with me. It hasn't lasted that long, but anyway, because what happens is you go back, you have those wonderful enlightened experiences, and then you go back to your habits, which is what we're going to talk about now, because it's really important. But let me stop for a minute and throw it open and see, maybe you want to ask something, maybe you want to state something. It must touch something in all of you. Please.
Can I ask?
Yes.
So there's these 25 levels.
Yes, 25
and we're
levels.
on level 13.
Right.
Do we have we been on the others? Do we need to go through the others?
You see, that's such the interesting question Patricia's asking is, have we been through other levels if we're on this 25th level?
13.
Okay, it could be, it could not
we have
be.
to go through that. And are they worse than this?
Not, absolutely not, because we've got the opportunity. Once you are awakened, you don't have to go through anything. And however more awakened you are, however more enlightened you are, why would you have to? What that is saying is not for your mind to look at and say, will I have to go worse afterwards? We'll talk about that.
This,
yeah.
Do I have to
No, but the point is, of course you don't. Because in the Saha, in the world of endurance, you also get a chance to be free.
Yeah.
To totally free yourself. So it's up to you. It's how you are responding to your daily existence, to your daily life, how you are. Are you pompous? Are you arrogant? Are you doing what you're meant to be doing? I know that I'm meant to be teaching. I have to teach. Wherever I go now, I have to teach. If I don't give birth to teaching, I'm going to just shrivel. I really will shrivel. And so I really need to be teaching. And each of you has a need to be doing something very, very special. Doesn't have to be an amazing thing, but special to you. And if you're not doing it, if you're wasting your life just with mundane activities, then that's not okay. Other questions, other points, anything or comments? Yes.
Hi, Mel. Hi, Melanie. Hi, everyone.
Your
So,
beautiful music. If
Oh.
I'd had you in the days when I was doing all the plays for the llamas, when I was writing these lovely rhymey songs, which I now probably have to throw out because I can't keep them because there's a folder, like I would have used you to sing everything for them. So I'm still keeping my mind on you. You've got this beautiful voice. It's amazing. Okay, go, Clinton.
so I first want to say something. The tree branches reflecting behind you in the sunlight looks like flames, and the white that you're wearing looks like Vajragini's bone ornaments.
That's beautiful. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Remind me of Vajragini with your bone ornament and your flames.
It's gorgeous, yeah.
And then secondly, what you say about our karmic tapestry and the sort of the mandala of our lives. Something that I've been going through of late is sort of finding an inner state of belonging, seeing, especially relating to where I come from ancestrally and where I find myself in the present, because my background is quite mixed in the sense that on my mother's side, I'm a descendant of German Jewish ancestors who had to flee Europe because of anti-Semitism. And they eventually, at some point, I don't know when, became Catholic. And so there's this Catholic Jewish mixture, and then there's also probably some Native African mixture at some point, and all of these things. And my father's a Frisian, he's from northwestern Netherlands, and yeah, so there's a lot of mixtures of lineages and paths and languages and all these things. And you sort of find yourself at a point where you think, out of all of this, I'm also attracted to Tibetan Buddhism, and I'm practicing a spirituality that's practiced in the distant Himalayas, and yet here I am in the southern tip of Africa. So putting all of that together is quite a
beautiful thing, because you know why? It's so interesting, because in my lineage, I mean, it was distinctly Jewish. Absolutely Jewish. I mean, my late grandfather was a rabbi, in fact, and I really went the whole Jewish road, and I liked it. And I even went and studied the Kabbalah for a while and everything, but it wasn't it. And when I look back, I also went through lots of spiritual paths until I came to Tibetan Buddhism, which I was thrust into in a bookshop in London. I went into the bookshop in London and I felt myself actually being pushed to Tibetan Buddhism. And my son, who was living there at the time, said, I didn't know you were interested in Tibetan Buddhism, Mom. And I said, neither did I. Okay, but I started proceeding, buying all the texts and everything. You know what? It's a very interesting thing, because your karmic tapestry and your mandala is extremely important, because what I can see in this time period is the fact that a lot of us that have come into the Tibetan Buddhism come from all these lineages, all these backgrounds, all these places, all these everything. And it's so important, because in order to be able to give, even in your singing, even in whatever you will do in your life, you need all of this. I realize now, with a teeny drop, maybe a little pool of wisdom, which is all I've got, I really realize that my very background, my very things, I mean, if any of you came into my study, you would absolutely die to see what I'm cleaning out of the cupboards burn. You don't remember you did slides this size. Do you remember those? Do you know that there are 2 rolls of dozens and dozens of slides? You can hardly even lift them out, that we did, teaching psychology and spirituality and everything, teaching it, and I'm throwing them all into recycling.
I've actually just gone through my computer and found it all on my computer. I'm just deleting it all.
God, okay.
I
must
can't
say,
actually believe.
no, you do not know the road that is in the study of mine, the road, but it all comes down to one essence in the end. And on Saturday morning, I felt that essence in my being. I felt alive. I felt awake. I knew that whatever hardships are on the road ahead, everything comes together in one point when you become enlightened, or at least a little awake. It's the most unbelievable thing. So your background and your frenetic, you have been a bit frenetic, running and finding and looking and going, and Clinton will be in one of the masters in India, and then he'll be in one of the masters in Tibet and Nepal and wherever. You know what? You've got to land eventually, and then you'll put your whole karmic tapestry together, because each strand of the mandala comes together as soon as you take the lid off the roles, the dramatic roles that we play. Because the dramatic roles are actually nothing. Now, in being Guru Rinpoche, James Lowe shows you all Guru Rinpoche's manifestations, how he can have thousands of millions of manifestations, but they're all centered in the one enlightened part of your heart. It's absolutely amazing. And that's what we're doing. We are trying to center in the enlightened part of our hearts so that we can manifest in millions of different ways according to whatever anybody needs. Because always remember that the Nirmanakaya of the masters responds to every single being. If you're a dog, it responds to the dog. If you're a flea, it will respond to that flea, because you've got this one central, you could call it identity, but you could call it identitylessness. And once you have that, whatever you're going through, how many tears, how many traumas, how many dramas, doesn't make a difference. It doesn't mean you don't feel, but you don't attach to it. So yours is going to come together beautifully, Clinton. And then you're going to do what you're really meant to be doing. So don't get too frantic in trying to actually see everything and how it fits. But you'll just see. Like mine on Saturday morning, I can't tell you how, it just fitted together. It was the most liberating experience. Came out of that movie that I was watching. It just brought the memory out. Is that okay?
Yeah. So, as I've told you via WhatsApp that my wife and I have, joined Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche's group with the Ngondro and so on, with the Longchen
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
So the overarching theme with that is that, because I'm a creative person, so I've got a bit of a frenetic mind. I can be in a lot of places at the same time, but yeah. A lot of the overarching themes that I've been experiencing, or that I've been doing in the Dharma, is that I've been, as you say, first this Lama, then I receive these empowerments, and then that Lama, and then I receive the. But at the end of the day, I don't know what to do with any of the bloody empowerments.
Exactly.
So it all comes together very nicely in this Longchen Nyingtik Gondro practice, because it's got quite a tantric element to it, with working with Vajragini and with Guru Rinpoche.
Very, very tantric element, and I did it myself. It's amazing.
Yes. Yeah. It's really amazing, and that's sort of providing a kind of a landing, as you say, coming to a center, and the fact that my wife took refuge in Bodhisattva vows as well makes it very beneficial.
Brilliant, yeah.
And then the other thing is that Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche is also a creative person. He's a filmmaker and an artist himself. So I really resonate with a lot of what he says.
So
He can be quite provocative politically, but I think that's a way of sort of prodding and poking at the ego a bit, among other things.
Absolutely. And you see, when your frenetic activity ceases, you're going to have absolute clarity. But I am totally okay with your frenetic activity. Yeah, there, everywhere, up, down, in, out, this master, that master. Eventually, you'll just come to a central point and you'll know. Because every single Vajrayana practice that we do is you can just do, as Tulku Urjana says, you can do one practice for your whole life. And that's enough. Because it's not about the quality of the deity. It is about absorbing that quality. But it's really about your ability to get to that enlightened state. That's what we're doing. And it's really important. So I think when you stop, maybe one day you'll just be singing and will just come to you where your journey is, and then you'll settle into it. I'm absolutely sure it will, because your enthusiasm's like mine. It never ends. It never ends. It's amazing. But I want to do a little meditation, but I just want to say one more thing. When the chips are down, for so many numerous reasons, for bereavement, for loss, for money or material issues, divorce, wars, court cases, disasters, job problems, career problems, country problems, which we're in right now. When these situations are there, our negative emotions run rampant. Now let's just put this together, and you, Clinton, put it together with your Nondra of the Longching Ningtik, because it's important this. So angers, depressions, fears, delusions, desires, greed, envies. If we attach to these emotions, the Buddha put 84,000 of them down. Okay, if we attach to these emotions as though they were solid and permanent, as if they had the power to pull us down, permanent, as though we thought they were permanent, they could pull us down. If this attachment to this particular emotion or this particular trauma or this particular situation starts to become habitual, so it starts becoming a habit. And when you look back, you see, I've had many situations like this in my life. When that becomes habit and our responses to being attached to them cause deep imprints in our alaya consciousness, then we enter one or more of the 6 realms of samsara. That's when we enter them. Now, what is the true meaning of this? The realms are our states of mind after repeating the habits of the poison. The realms are our states of mind after repeating the habits of the poison. Why is it called a realm? It's called a realm because like-minded beings find themselves in the same emotional state and they go together. I mean, you've seen, for instance, drug addicts. They meet on a street corner, in a bathroom or whatever, because they're drawn together. People who've got cancers are drawn together in a realm. People who are in bereavement, I've seen this with all the people that I was kind, they draw together in a realm. So what happens is, if you believe in your state of mind, you will be attracted to one of the realms of samsara where you will dwell in your mind. Now, once we understand that, and there are lots of sub-realms in each of the main 6, but each realm is formed from a different negative poison. But remember, the poisons also have lots of associated poison. So like when people feel hurt, and they've got the poison of, I'm so hurt, I'm so depressed, sometimes they'll manifest anger when they really are depressed because they're too scared to face that depression. So there are lots of sub stations of the realms. But the most important thing to understand about the realms, whether you are in hell at any particular time of your life where you just can't see the wood for the trees, you're in a hell realm, and there are just so many grudges and grievances and resentments and anger and aggression and everything else, and you're in this hell realm and you just can't get out because you wake up in the morning and back it comes. You wake up, you go in the evening and back it comes into your sleep state. It's everywhere. That's what a realm really is. But the good news, there's good news of all of this when the chips are down, of course. The good news is one thought, one single thought, like there must be more than this. Like in the hell realms, when the masters describe it, it's like you're in the middle of a boiling ocean. And then two mountains come and they burn you to pieces and you're screaming, ah, no different to if you're feeling depression psychologically or anything. They burn you and then the mountains go back and you're thinking, phew. And then it repeats again. You're back in that realm. You can't get out. You're right deep there. You can't move out of it. But one thought that is different and you're out of that realm. Because when I was much younger, I never knew why, but every night I would go to these realms and teach people. Such an unbelievable experience. And I would remember, and I would always be exhausted in the morning because I would try and say to the people there, but listen, this is the truth about it. This is this. And they would throw rotten tomatoes at me. They would shout at me. They're in the realm. They can't get out. But if somebody says, there must be more than these mountains coming to burn me, and then I'm okay, and then it goes again, and then I'm okay, and then it goes again. We're only trapped in the realm by your constant belief in the reality of the negative emotion, which never was real to start off with. It feels real, but it isn't real. If you look deeply into the emotion, there's the wisdom. There's this beautiful prayer that says, may illumination dawn as wisdom. May my angers, my depressions, my this, my that, my envies, my jealousies that are repeated, may they dawn as wisdom. So there is a different place to see this. And I want to just talk very briefly about each realm, but I want us to do a meditation. Because this is so important in your daily life, right, Betty Lou? Betty Lou, who's always had Betty's always been there for everybody and all of that, and she feels awful right now. And that's okay. Maybe this is a time for you to go into your own self and really figure a lot of things out. You know what I mean? Because maybe there was a dimension of your giving that desecrated yourself. In other words, you never got it back. And if something desecrates yourself, then you have to change the way you behave. So if you look at what's going on in your life now, it's very, very beautiful because it's an opportunity to change your beautiful giving. You'll never give up giving, but you won't give at the expense of yourself. You'll give in a beautiful way that will still feed you. Do you understand what I'm saying? Good. So these realms, when we look at them, they are unbelievable because there's the hell realms, which happen when you've got anger, aggression, grudges, grievances, resentment, hurt, and you're in that hell realm. There's the hungry ghost realm. We in South Africa are living in a hungry ghost realm. I just read in the paper this morning that these parliamentarians are looking for increases in their salaries, and their salaries are over R1 million a year. Some of them 1.4 million a year, and they want increases, and they're not sure they can afford the 350 Rand for the poor people and for the people that are really down and out. It really is unreal. We live in a hungry ghost realm because people, lots of people who came from deprivation, and now the habit, lots of them grew up in okay families. The older ones grew up in total deprivation, but the next generation often had everything that we had when we were growing up as children, and they're still hungry ghosts. So that hungry ghost mentality pervades. What is it? It's all about craving, greed, eternal dissatisfaction, never getting enough. They can't get enough. If they're earning $1 million and the whole country's starving, they want more. It's not enough. That's what the hungry ghost realm is. The animal realm, the animals don't have intellect. They have instinct. But so many animals suffer so badly. They have ignorance intellectually, although they have complete, deep, different instinctual intelligence when they're here, but they live with fear all the time in their instinct, looking over their shoulders. They live with delusions. They never hold grievances against you. My animals never hold grievances. When I come back, they're so happy to see me again, you know. So the thing is that the animal realm, a lot of humans take birth in an animal realm when they behave like a raging animal. And the jealous gods of the attachment to envy, jealousy, competitiveness. We've got a whole jealous God realm in our lives, right in our human realm. The human realm, I don't have to go into because you all know it. Desire, wanting, suffering, pain, depression, attachment, all of those things. And a God realm, which is right up where they say these beings have beautiful lives because they're beautiful, they've got enough of everything, they've got abundance, and they have these long lives where they are of great self-importance, and then they die, and they have to go back to redo the whole thing, because in their arrogance and in their pride, they didn't give service like they should have. Those are the 6 realms of samsara, and it's really important that we talk about them, because some of us have got those realms living inside us lots of times. You can live in a few realms at the same time. So we're going to look at the autobiography in 5 chapters, and then let's meditate. You know that autobiography in 5 chapters, which is a really important autobiography. Chapter 1, all of you know it. I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I'm lost. I'm hopeless. It isn't my fault. Never my fault. It takes forever to find a way out. Chapter 2. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place, but it isn't my fault, and it takes me a long time to get out. Chapter 3. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk, and I can see that it's there. I still fall in. It's a habit. My eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault. I get out immediately. Chapter 4. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5. I walk down another street. Habit, 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 habit. Let's do the meditation. And then I think it's kind of enough for today. I've got so much to give you, and so much that runs out of me like a silly waterfall. But you know what? while we're meditating, think about your questions and your comments. It's very important. And I find a lot of you do think a lot, and then you go home and then you text me, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I can always put little audios onto the text. It's very easy for me, as long as all of you are pondering all of this. This is our life. This is how we're living. This is who we are, who we've become. It's not who we are, it's who we've become. And the Vajrayana practice helps us so much. But as James Lowe said, you have to find a practice that you love and that you relate to. And he says the divorce rate with practices, Clinton, is very high. Okay, he says the divorce rate is very high with practice. So let's do a little meditation. I know I'm giving you a lot of food for thought, but I want you to just breathe in and breathe out. And come to this moment. And as you go into your meditation or your non-meditation, I prefer to call it that, because your meditation must happen while you're walking down the road, while you're helping people, when you're in the supermarket, when you're looking after your grandchildren. That must always, you're always in the same spot. You're meditating. You're a realized being who's just walking the path of samsara without losing that ability to know that you are a realized being. And as you breathe in and out, I want you to understand, and we're going to talk about this from James Lowe. He talks about the 4 aspects of practice. So let's go first to the view. What's your view as you sit in meditation? Your view is infinite possibility, infinite emptiness, no limitation. The view is, I will see whatever it is that I have to see, no matter how painful, no matter how difficult. I will get the view that I can see. We'll talk more about that. A new kind of experience in your view. Relax everything in your physical body, everything. And meditation, while you're sitting, is an opportunity to shift your view, Meditation or non-meditation should be clear like the sun, free of clouds. As you're looking at these clouds that are there, you're asking yourself, what are these clouds? They are my assumptions about myself and everything that I'm in. They are my karmic habits that go on and on, falling into the same hole. They are my impulses. I just couldn't help myself. It was my impulse. They are our personal history. What's happened to us in our lives. Out of all of these assumptions, we create some notion of who we are. And eventually, there are more clouds than sunlight. And we try and lift the clouds off so clarity is there. Then the view can manifest through us. Just feel the letting be of your trauma, your pain, of your freneticness, of your impulses, of your habits. Just let them be and know there is no solidity to them. And know that whatever meditation practice we do, it's to understand how we got lost. So as each point dissolves, as each negative pattern dissolves, as you just let it go from your fingertips, there is the light. There is the true view. There is who you are. Breathe it in. Let everything else just rise up and dissolve into its empty state. All is just as it should be, no matter how difficult. Once there is an understanding of how we got lost, how we got into the wheel, how our negative emotions become habits, and we fall into the hole every time, then it's just a waking up process, an actual turning process. So there's a lot here, everybody. Ask, talk. I've got lots of his beautiful teachings to give you. There's such an abundance of it. There really is a lot. But I don't want to rush in more. I mean, I've given you a lot today to think about. What do you think about the realms? What do you think about how attached you are to your feelings?
I think it's a human condition.
It's a human condition, but what is a human condition? You know what they say about it? They actually say in a human condition that we really want to be reborn in a human condition because it gives us the opportunity, and that's true. But then James Lowe says, but maybe the human condition isn't the greatest because you've got to assume a role in a drama, and then what after that? You know, it's so interesting.
Back to the stars.
Back to the stars, okay. Take everybody with you. Anything else? Anybody? Let's hear you. Karen, Molly, Nicola, you can do it without your camera. My dear little Gail, she's always pondering. I can only see your little eyes pondering always. What do you think, Gail? How does it resonate with you?
I just believe that you have to unlearn a life full of bad habits.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
Oh, what? It really is hard. But, okay, it's only because it's like if you had a blanket over your head, you couldn't see your way out. But if you took the blanket off, you could see again. And this is the beautiful thing, that people in lots of religions make out as though the goal you're looking for is over there. You've got to do this, and then you'll eventually get to the goal. You know, I see it. I mean, I see it in a Jewish funeral that I go to. I mean, I see, we just had this family bereavement, and I hear how people talk. So the daughter of this man that died, she says to me, she's talking to my grandchildren. She's an aunt, okay? And then they ask her some question about the death. And then she says, well, Grandpa is now with his mom, and she gives the name, and his father, and she gives the name, and all the family and all the Jewish community, and they all together, and now he's able to be home in his real home. Well, I definitely couldn't contradict her in front of her, but I will certainly re-clarify that at the right opportunity, okay? And I will say, no, no, no. How did we get that at a Jewish funeral? It says, and so has been gathered up to his people. Well, Clinton, if you go through that, you're going to say, which people? Where are the people? Which one? I had those, I had those, I had those, I had those. You know what I mean? If they say, I'm gathered up to my people, I'm going to say, which people? I prefer the Tibetan Buddhists. But culturally, your Zonsar says, we can never be Tibetan, even if we try our whole lives, you know. We're born in this culture. So what does it mean, gathered up to your people? It means we're in the realm of keeping everything that we've got exactly as it always was. Whew. That is so tight for my head. I feel as though you've put a band around me and you're enclosing my head. So, you know, the people that you love. So people say, so do you just leave the people that you love? Yes. You leave them physically, but you don't leave their love and what you had with them, because that's contained in your Buddha nature. So if it's contained in your Buddha nature, if you're missing your mommy from the previous lifetime, just go into all the memories and the love. If your mommy gave you love, go into that and it's there for you. Not the actual mom waiting to receive you after death. How can we have habits like this which keep us bound to samsara and its 6 realms? And then I see fights of families. I see families fighting like crazy over money. I was told the other night that a particular family, was having such fights over the money their parent left that they had to divide the funeral into 2. One for the one half of the family and one for the other half of the family. You know, when I hear this, can you imagine? Can you imagine that you can't come to one funeral and be civil towards one another because it's all about money? It's called a hungry ghost realm, you know? And Molly said to me, she sent me a text the other day, after Tuesday night. So she came last Monday and she came last Tuesday night. And I loved your text that you sent, Molly, where you actually said, she said to me, you know, Melanie, after these 2 talks, if we don't get it, then we're stupid. That's what she said. If we don't get it, you're shouting it. If we don't get it, then we must be dick. Okay. Well, the thing is, you're not dick. You're just habituated. And so how the habits change, which is what we're going to talk about in James Lowe's wonderful thing. And you'll be very happy to know that at the moment I've got 20 pages of notes, okay, which I have to dissect for all of you because it's too many notes, okay. But they were all important. But he tells us, practice, and he doesn't say it in a righteous way. He says, do your practice, just as your Zongsakiensi says, do your practice. Your practice is there, not because you're a religious fanatic, not because you're trying to be a Tibetan, not because you're walking around the earth plane saying, I am Chen Rezi, or I am Guru Rinpoche, or whatever the case is. Not for those reasons, just to give us a chance to step out of this particular form that we're in. Because he speaks about at death. If you think it's Melanie that's going over, I got news for you. Melanie's going to be very lost if she thinks it's her being that needs to step over, because it's not going to be like that when we get there. These realms, we do not realize that we have made these realms, and we need to step outside of them with one thought: there must be more than this, nothing else. Think about it and ponder it, okay? And if you miss the beginning, go back to the beginning. But really, I want to go on next week with James Lowe's wonderful ways of actually teaching us how to step out of ourselves, which is so important. And what I like about him is he's got the psychology as well. So he really gets us where we are. And being a Westerner, he really does get what we feel. So I think it's a wonderful chance for us to understand all of this. So let's dedicate, and I'll stay if anybody, some of you may not like to say things because it's recorded and it's going on YouTube now, and probably half the things I say are going to be bad. Mimi, I'm going to come to you. Do you want to quickly say, Mim?
Yeah, it's just one sentence. Apropos what you're saying about James Lowe, he said, if you're closed, when you die, it's all open, and that's where we have the problem.
Yeah.
So if you completely, it's all open, and that's where we may get afraid or confused.
And it's absolutely true, because it's so open. You've got every possibility, and as long as you know the identity of your true nature, you never lost. But it's so hard for us. But the practice that we do over and over and over again starts opening up. And then you have days where you really feel, wow, this is amazing. Or wow, my practice is amazing. Or wow, I understand what I'm doing. And it's then that we change those habits. And then the habits get quicker and quicker, like in the autobiography. So let's dedicate to all sentient beings and all those that are suffering, those in the earthquake, thousands in Morocco. And I just looked at the rugby last night, and there were like 75,000 people or something sitting there. And I thought, what a pity they're not there for Dharma teaching, But anyway, but James Lowe speaks about sport as well, and what obsession sports are. Any case, let's dedicate for all the beings that are in terrible trauma, suffocation, earthquakes, unnatural disasters, wars, all of them, and all the individuals that are really, really having a difficult time. We dedicate all these teachings. May they even get one sentence out of this. Through this merit, may we achieve all-seeing Buddhahood, and thereafter, once all harmful enemies have been defeated, may all beings be liberated from the ocean of existence, stirred by the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Sonam die tamche zipane topne nepe dranam pamshene chegana chibala tropaye sipe sole doa dro warsho.